My sister demanded I watch her kids while she went to Dubai, brushing off my major surgery by saying, "You're free anyway." I said nothing. Instead, I called my lawyer and prepared a homecoming that would cost her everything. When she walked through her front door, her face went white. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The pain was a sharp, biting thing. It was not the dull ache I had lived with for years, but a fresh, surgical fire that radiated from my spine with every breath. I was 3 days post-op from a spinal fusion, a surgery my doctors had called critically necessary after a degenerative disc finally collapsed. My world had shrunk to the 4 walls of my bedroom, a collection of prescription bottles on the nightstand, and the precarious, log-rolling maneuver I had to perform just to sit up. I was 48, a financial trustee by profession and a planner by nature. I had arranged for meal deliveries. I had prepaid my bills. I had set up an out-of-office reply that clearly stated I was on medical leave and unreachable. I had, I thought, accounted for everything. My phone, which I'd silenced to avoid the vibration, lit up on the nightstand. Reaching for it sent a jolt of agony through my back, making me gasp. I squinted at the screen. It was a text from my younger sister, Hannah. My relationship with Hannah was complex. She was 39, beautiful, and lived in a bubble of blissful, intentional ignorance, funded by a combination of her husband's vague promises and my own misplaced sense of duty. I tapped the notification open. The message was a wall of text, bubbly and breathless, full of emojis I didn't understand. "Hey G, OMG, you won't believe it. Harry just got this incredible offer to network in Dubai. Airplane partying, it's all expenses paid, a super exclusive tech summit, and it's next week. We're finally going to get the funding for his app. We're so excited. Anyway, it's super last minute, so I need you to take Leo and Sophie for the week. I'll drop them off Monday morning. TTYL, packing." I read it twice. There was no, "How are you feeling?" No, "I know you just had surgery." Not even a "can you?" It was a statement, a demand. I painstakingly typed a short reply, my fingers stiff. "Hannah, I can't. I just had spinal surgery. I'm on strict bed rest. I can barely walk." The 3 little dots appeared instantly. She had been waiting. Her reply came a second later. "Oh, stop being so dramatic. Gee, it's just sitting. You're free anyway, you're not even working. What else do you have to do besides rest? The kids are easy. They have their tablets. It's perfect. You can recover and they can hang out. Don't be difficult, I'm your sister and I really need this. It's only a week. See you Monday," face blowing a kiss. I stared at the message, the casual, cutting dismissal of my pain. "You're free anyway." The words echoed in my head, louder than the pounding in my back. She hadn't just minimized my surgery, she had vaporized it. She had seen my period of critical recovery as a convenience, a gap in my schedule perfectly sized to fit her needs. I thought of her children, my niece and nephew. Leo, 9, and Sophie, 7. They weren't easy. They were wonderful, bright children, but they were also energetic and needy, starved for the attention their influencer mother and visionary father never gave them. They deserved hikes in the park, craft projects, and home-cooked meals, not to be parked in front of a tablet in the quiet, sterile home of an invalid who couldn't lift a gallon of milk, let alone a 7-year-old who'd had a nightmare. For years, I had been the family backstop, the responsible one, the emergency contact, the short-term loan provider, the free financial advisor, the holiday host, and the last-minute babysitter. I was the solid, boring foundation upon which Hannah and her useless husband, Harry, built their glittering, unstable lives. And as I lay there, immobilized by pain and helpless in my own home, my sister had just demanded I sacrifice my physical health for her vacation. She hadn't asked. She had informed me. A new sensation, colder and sharper than the surgical pain, began to spread through my chest. It wasn't just anger. It was a terrible, clarifying calm. I looked at her message, at the cheerful, dismissive kissy face emoji. I did not reply. I set the phone back on the nightstand. I closed my eyes, regulating my breathing against the pain in my back. Hannah, in her boundless entitlement, had just made a catastrophic mistake. She had texted the one person who knew every skeleton in her closet, every dollar she owed, and every secret she kept. She and Harry, in their rush to Dubai, had forgotten one crucial thing. I was not just her sister, I was her trustee, and the beautiful, mortgage-free house she was so carelessly leaving behind. She didn't own it, I did. The betrayal, in that moment, felt more permanent than the titanium screws in my spine. The rest of the day was a blur of medication schedules and pain management. The text message, however, remained in my mind, glowing like a toxic ember. I was supposed to be resting, healing, and keeping my stress levels at zero. Instead, my heart hammered with a cold, controlled fury. My phone buzzed again late that afternoon. I ignored it. It buzzed twice more, back to back. The rapid, impatient pings of someone who is not getting the immediate validation they expect. Finally, it rang. I let it go to voicemail. I knew the script. First, the breezy assumption that my silence meant agreement. Then, a flicker of irritation. Finally, the manipulative guilt trip. A new voicemail icon appeared. I pressed the button, holding the phone to my ear. "Georgia, pick up. I'm trying to book my spray tan, and I need to know if I should drop the kids off at 7 or 8 on Monday. 8 is better for me. Also, Sophie is out of her allergy meds, so you'll need to pick those up. The prescription should be ready at the CVS by your house. Just call me back. I don't know why you're making this so hard." The line clicked. The sheer, unmitigated gall, "You'll need to pick those up." I was forbidden from driving for 2 weeks. I was barely allowed to walk to my own bathroom. Did she think I was going to magically float to the pharmacy? The cold calm I'd felt earlier began to solidify. It was hardening from a liquid rage into something solid and structural. It was becoming a plan. I thought about my parents. They had been good people, hardworking and frugal. They had seen Hannah's nature clearly, even when I was still making excuses for her. They worried about what would happen to Leo and Sophie. That was why they had set up the family trust. They had left the large family home, the one Hannah and Harry now lived in the trust. They had left a significant financial portfolio in the trust, designed to provide for the children's education and future. And they had made me, their responsible, detail-oriented older daughter, the sole, unassailable trustee. Hannah had thrown a spectacular tantrum at the lawyer's office when the will was read. She had screamed that I had stolen her inheritance. She hadn't understood, or refused to understand, that the house was never hers. It was a privilege. She and Harry were allowed to live there, rent-free, under a specific set amelia of conditions, all detailed in the trust agreement. The agreement was simple. They had to maintain the property, pay the utilities and taxes, and, this was the clause my lawyer insisted on, conduct themselves in a financially responsible and morally sound manner, befitting the parents of the trust's future beneficiaries. For years, I had been lenient. I had looked the other way at the overgrown yard, the late property tax payments, which I often covered from the trust's main fund, just to avoid penalties, and Harry's endless, failed ventures that he financed by selling off furniture from the house that was also technically owned by the trust. But this was different. This was not just irresponsibility. This was a callous disregard for my health and a willful endangerment of her children. I picked up my phone. My fingers were steady. I did not text Hannah back. I called Mr. Davies, the family lawyer. The man who had drafted my parents' will and who had sighed, "I told you so," more than once over the years regarding Hannah. "Georgia, I was so sorry to hear about your surgery. I trust the recovery is going well." His voice was kind but professional. "It's going, Mr. Davies," I said, my own voice tight. "But I'm afraid I need your services. Something has come up with Hannah." There was a half-second pause. "Oh dear, what has she done now?" "She has informed me that she and Harry are leaving for Dubai on Monday and are abandoning their children at my house for a week. She is aware that I am 3 days post-op from a spinal fusion and am physically incapable of caring for them. The silence on the other end of the line was heavy. What? Mr. Davies, a man who had seen every dirty trick in the book, sounded genuinely shocked. She's abandoning them. That's the word I'd use, yes, I said. She's trying to pass it off as a favor, but her text messages make it clear it's a demand. She also expects me to run errands for her, like picking up prescriptions, which I am medically forbidden from doing. Georgia, this is. It gets worse, Mr. Davies, I interrupted, a cold certainty settling over me. I need you to do two things for me. First, I want to start the process of removing her and Harry from the trust property. What she's doing is a clear violation of the morally sound conduct clause. Second, I have a terrible feeling about this. This Dubai trip feels wrong. It's too sudden. Harry doesn't network, he scrounges. Can you check the title on the house? I want to make sure they haven't tried to do anything stupid. Stupid like what, Georgia? Stupid like trying to get a loan against a house they don't own, I said. Mr. Davies let out a long, slow breath. I'll check the title registry first thing in the morning. I'll also pull the trust agreement and start drafting the eviction notices. You, meanwhile, are to do nothing. Do not reply to her. Do not engage. You are recovering. Let me handle this. I hung up the phone, the pain in my back momentarily eclipsed by the steel in my veins. I looked at Hannah's last message, the arrogant, dismissive kissy face. She and Harry, with their heads full of Dubai skyscrapers and venture capital fantasies, had forgotten one crucial thing. They had forgotten who I was. My history with Hannah was a long, tired story of one-sided sacrifice. Being 9 years older, I had practically raised her. Our parents worked long hours, and I was the one who helped with homework, who packed lunches, and who listened to her high school dramas. I loved her, but that love had been corroded over the years by her relentless, leech-like entitlement. When she met Harry at 30, it was like pouring gasoline on a bonfire. Harry was 33, perpetually on the verge of greatness. He was an app developer, a visionary, a disruptor. In the 12 years they had been together, he had not once held a job for more than 6 months. His projects were always just one investor away from being the next big thing. I was the one who paid for Hannah's wellness coach certification. I was the one who co-signed the lease on her first yoga studio, which she abandoned after 4 months because the energy was off. I was the one who discreetly paid the $5,000 credit card bill she'd run up buying inventory for a multi-level marketing scheme Harry had convinced her was a sure thing. Their life, as curated on Hannah's modest influencer wannabe social media, was a pastel-filtered lie. It was all living our truth, manifesting abundance and boss mom energy. It was photos of Sophie in boutique dresses, which I'd paid for, and Leo with a new gaming system, a birthday gift from me. It was brunch photos at restaurants they couldn't afford, and long, rambling posts about breaking generational curses, which I found particularly ironic since they were living entirely off the generosity of the generation they so casually dismissed. Their actual professions were a joke. Hannah's wellness coaching consisted of posting inspirational quotes over pictures of her morning coffee. Harry's app development was him, in his pajamas, playing video games in the home office of the trust house, while he waited for the right funding partner. My parents had seen it all. They had loved Hannah, but they had not been blind. The trust was their way of protecting their grandchildren from their parents. The house was a beautiful 4-bedroom brick colonial in a good school district. It was my childhood home. Hannah and Harry lived there as caretakers, a title I'd given them to spare their pride. The agreement was clear. They lived there for free, and in exchange, they were responsible for all upkeep, maintenance, and property taxes. For the first few years, it was fine, but I, as trustee, saw the bank alerts. The property tax bill was paid late, every single quarter. I got a call from the Homeowners Association about the peeling paint on the shutters. A neighbor sent me a photo of the lawn, which was a brown, patchy mess. Every time I would call Hannah, and every time it was a waterfall of excuses. Oh gee, Harry's just been so busy with the app, he completely forgot. We had to choose between the taxes and Leo's braces. What was I supposed to do? I checked with her dentist. I was paying for the braces. The HOA president is just a bitter old woman who hates me because I'm young and vibrant. Each time I would sigh, authorize a payment from the trust to fix the problem, and remind her of her obligations. And each time she would thank me, call me her rock. And then, a week later, post a photo of a new, ridiculously expensive designer handbag. The kids, Leo and Sophie, were the real victims. They were wonderful, sweet-natured children who were being raised by iPads and takeout menus. When I visited, the house was always a disaster, not with the charming clutter of a family, but with the stagnant mess of neglect. Piles of laundry, overflowing trash cans, and a fridge that contained little more than energy drinks and old ketchup packets. Hannah and Harry, meanwhile, would be cleansing or ideating. The last time I'd seen them, a month before my surgery, Harry had been unusually interested in my work. "So, Georgia," he'd said, leaning over the kitchen island, his voice slick with false familiarity. "This trust thing, it's like, you're the CEO, right?" "I'm the trustee, Harry. It's a legal and fiduciary responsibility." Right, fiduciary, love that." He'd smiled a practiced, empty smile. "So the house, it's just, in the trust, like in a box." "It's an asset of the trust, yes. Why?" Hannah had swooped in, placing a hand on his arm. "Harry's just curious. We were just saying how grateful we are to be able to live here, in Mommy and Daddy's house. It has such good energy for our work." At the time, I dismissed it as another one of Harry's bizarre, half-baked attempts at conversation. Now, lying in my bed, the memory made my blood run cold. It wasn't curiosity, it was reconnaissance. They had been planning something. This Dubai trip wasn't a last-minute thing at all. It was an escape. My phone buzzed. It was an email from Mr. Davies. Subject urgent, title search. My hands trembled as I opened it. The message was short and terrifying. "Georgia, you were right." I pulled the county records. A preliminary mortgage application was filed against the property 2 weeks ago by a high-risk online lender. The application was in the names of Hannah and Harry. It was denied, but not before they submitted supporting documents. "Georgia, they forged your signature. They forged a document claiming to be the sole owners of the property. This isn't just a breach of the trust. This is felony-level fraud. I've already contacted the lender's fraud department. I'm on my way to the office. We need to act immediately. Call me." The pain in my back was nothing compared to the icy shock that flooded my system. Forged my signature. Fraud. They hadn't just been planning a vacation. They had been planning to steal my parents' legacy, the children's future, right out from under them. I immediately called Mr. Davies. "They what?" I whispered, my voice hoarse. "They tried to take out a $200,000 line of credit against the house, Georgia," Mr. Davies said, his voice grim and clipped. He was no longer the kind family friend. He was the lawyer. "They used a scanned copy of your driver's license. God knows how they got that, and a forged document naming them as the new trustees. It was a sloppy, amateur job, which is why the lender's underwriting department flagged it and denied them." I felt sick. A memory surfaced, Hannah helping me set up my new printer a few months ago, just needing to scan a few test documents. She must have scanned my license and a copy of the trust agreement I'd foolishly left on my desk. "So they were denied," I said, my mind racing, shifting from victim to strategist. The pain, the hurt, it was all still there, but it was being channeled. As a trustee, my job was to protect the trust's assets, and that's exactly what I was going to do. "They were denied this time," Mr. Davies corrected. "This tells us their mindset. They are desperate, and they are not above committing serious crimes. This Dubai trip, I don't think they're coming back, Georgia. I think this was their getaway plan. Get the $200,000, dump the kids with you, and disappear. Leaving me to raise their children and clean up their fraudulent loan," I finished. the pieces clicking into place. Exactly. So here's the plan, Mr. Davies said, his voice all business. 1. I am filing an immediate police report for identity theft and mortgage fraud. This creates a paper trail and flags the property against any future loan applications. 2. I am drafting an emergency eviction notice. Their attempt at fraud, combined with the clear moral conduct violation of abandoning their children, gives us more than enough cause. 3. And this is the most important part, Georgia. The children. Leo and Sophie, I breathed. They are the beneficiaries of this trust, but they are also minors. If their parents are attempting to flee the country and abandon them, we need to get ahead of it. I'm going to make a call to a colleague in family law. We need to be ready to file for emergency temporary custody on your behalf, citing parental abandonment. But they haven't left yet, I argued. The text messages you forwarded to me, the ones where your sister explicitly states she is leaving them with you against your will, and while you are medically incapacitated, are our first piece of evidence. The one-way tickets will be the second. One-way tickets? I'm willing to bet my license they didn't book a return flight, Georgia. Do you have access to her social media? She's an influencer, I said bitterly. Her whole life is public. Good, check it, look for clues. I'll get the legal wheels turning. You are not to contact her. You are to rest, recover, and gather evidence. And Georgia, change the locks on your own house. Today. We hung up, and I fell back against the pillows, my head spinning. My first call was to a locksmith, who agreed to come that afternoon. My second was to a mobile notary. Then I opened Hannah's Instagram page. It was everything I expected. A photo of 2 glasses of champagne, captioned, "Big things coming, manifesting." A video of her and Harry laughing, holding up matching new passports. New passports. Why would they need new passports if they weren't planning a? My heart stopped, I scrolled. 2 days ago, a post from Harry, which Hannah had shared. It was a picture of him standing in front of the house, my house, with his arms outstretched. The caption read, "It's been a long road, but Ray finally ready to leverage our assets and take this company global, selling the family home and moving on to bigger and better things. Dubai, we're coming for you. Entrepreneur life sold next chapter." Selling the family home. He had announced his intention to sell a house he didn't own, to leverage an asset that wasn't his. This wasn't just a post, it was an advertisement of his fraudulent intent. I screenshot everything. The champagne, the passports, the post. I forwarded it all to Mr. Davies with the subject line, Exhibit A. His reply was almost instantaneous. "This is all we need. The eviction is being filed. The family lawyer is on standby. I'm also contacting Child Protective Services." CPS, my stomach turned. It's non-negotiable, Georgia. You are medically unable to care for them. If Hannah and Harry dump them on your doorstep, you are not to let them in. You are to call 911. The police and a CPS agent will come, and we will have the emergency custody order ready. This is the only way to protect them and to protect you. For the rest of the day, I did exactly as I was told. The locksmith came and changed my locks. The notary came, and I signed the affidavits Mr. Davies had messengered over, my hand shaking but my signature firm. I was no longer just a victim. I was the trustee, and I was executing my duty. Hannah texted me again that evening. "Georgia, are you seriously ignoring me? I'm trying to coordinate. This is so typical of you, making my life harder. I'm dropping them at 8 a.m. Monday, be ready. And you clearly read my text about the meds, so I'm expecting you to have them." I looked at the message, at the bold, selfish, oblivious words. I still said nothing. But this time I smiled, because I was going to be ready, just not in the way she thought. The next few days were the longest of my life. I was still in immense pain, but it was now fueled by a cold, righteous adrenaline. Mr. Davies and I were in constant communication. He had confirmed with the lender that the forged documents were being handed over to the police. The fraud report was officially filed. "They're not just in breach of the trust, Georgia," he'd told me over the phone. "They're facing criminal charges when they land back in the U.S. If they do, they could be arrested." But the Dubai trip was still on. Hannah's social media was a flurry of getting ready posts. New luggage, new outfits, hashtags about global success. She was utterly oblivious. She was so convinced of her own cleverness and of my status as the family doormat that it never occurred to her that I wouldn't just roll over. The first confrontation, as I thought of it, didn't happen with Hannah, but with her husband. Harry called me on Sunday night, the evening before their flight. "Georgia," he said, his voice oozing that fake, buddy-buddy charm I detested. "Hannah is in a complete panic. You're not answering her. We just want to confirm you're all set for tomorrow." I took a deep, careful breath, wincing at the pull on my stitches. "Set for what, Harry?" I asked, my voice deliberately flat and weak. "For the kids, G. 8 a.m. We've got an Uber to the airport at 9, so we can't be late." "Harry," I said, letting a tremor of pain enter my voice. "I told Hannah, I cannot take the children. I am on bed rest. I just had spinal surgery." There was a pause. I could hear him sigh, a put-upon, impatient sound. Yeah, we know you're not feeling great, but look, G, this is it for us. This Dubai trip is going to set us up for life. We are this close," he said, and I could practically hear him holding his fingers an inch apart. "We can't just not go because you've got a sore back." A sore back. The condescension was so profound, it was almost impressive. "It's not a sore back, Harry. It's a spinal fusion. I cannot lift, bend, or drive. I cannot care for a 7- and 9-year-old. It is not safe for them, and it is not safe for me. The answer is no." This time, the charm evaporated. His voice went cold. "What do you mean, no? Georgia, don't do this. Don't you dare try to sabotage me. After everything this family has, you owe us this." "Owe you?" I repeated, my own voice losing its weakness and gaining an edge of steel. "I owe you nothing, and you are not bringing your children to my house." "You think you have a choice?" he spat. "Hannah is their aunt. No, you're their aunt. We're family. We'll just drop them and go. What are you going to do, not let them in? They're just kids." "If you abandon your children on my doorstep, Harry, I will call the police. I will call Child Protective Services, and I will show them the text messages from Hannah. Try explaining your all-expenses-paid trip to Dubai to a CPS agent." The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. He was stunned. The doormat had just bared its teeth. You wouldn't," he stammered, but the bravado was gone. "Try me," I said. "I'm sure the investors in Dubai would be very impressed to hear that you're wanted for child abandonment." He hung up on me. I immediately called Mr. Davies. He called. He threatened to dump them here. I told him I'd call CPS. "Good," Mr. Davies said. "Now they're scared. They're cornered. This is when they'll get even more stupid. I've done some more digging, by the way. This all-expenses-paid tech summit in Dubai, it doesn't exist. I had my assistant check. There are no tech summits in Dubai this week, not that Harry would be invited to anyway." "Then where are they going?" I ran a check on Harry's company. It's a shell registered in Delaware, but it's linked to a bank account that received a $20,000 deposit 3 weeks ago. "From where?" "A title loan," Mr. Davies said, his voice heavy with disgust. "Not on the house, they failed at that. They took out a loan on their car, the one you helped them buy." I remembered. The safe family SUV I'd given them $10,000 for as a gift for the kids. "So they have $20,000 and they're going to Dubai," I said. "It's a flight. They're running." "That's my guess, too," Mr. Davies said. "They were denied the big $200,000 score from the house, so they grabbed what cash they could and they're making a break for it. They'll leave the kids with you, disappear into the UAE, and try to start over, leaving you with their kids and their debts." This was the key, the final reveal. They weren't just going on a trip, they were fleeing. They had every intention of never coming back. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. They were abandoning their children, not for a week, but forever. "So what now?" I asked. "They'll be here at 8 a.m. with the kids." "And we'll be ready," Mr. Davies replied. "The emergency custody motion is filed, citing the text messages, the fraud attempt, and the abandonment threat Harry just made. A CPS agent has been assigned the case. Her name is Ms. Evans. She and a police officer will be on standby 2 blocks from your house at 7:45 a.m. The second you see their car, you call me. I call them. They will intercept them on your property. You, Georgia, will not even open the door. You are the recovering patient." The plan was set. The trap was laid. All I had to do was wait for the rats to arrive. Monday morning was excruciating. Every nerve in my body was on fire, a combination of surgical pain and profound anxiety. I had barely slept. I was propped up on my pillows, my living room window in full view, a cup of tea I couldn't drink sitting cold on my nightstand. My phone was on the pillow next to me, Mr. Davies on speed dial. At 7:52 a.m., a dark gray SUV, the one I had helped them buy, pulled into my driveway. My heart leaped into my throat. "They're here," I said, my thumb hovering over Mr. Davies' name. Hannah got out of the driver's side. She was dressed not for a long-haul flight, but for a celebrity appearance. She wore a cream-colored tracksuit, designer sunglasses, and a perfect, bouncy blowout. Harry got out of the passenger side, already on his phone, looking annoyed. Then the back doors opened. Leo and Sophie tumbled out, both in their pajamas, clutching their tablets. They looked sleepy, confused, and miserable. Sophie was holding a stuffed rabbit and rubbing her eyes. Leo was dragging his school backpack, which looked half empty. Hannah didn't bother to help them. She just pointed a perfectly manicured finger at my front door. "Go on, ring the bell. Auntie Georgia is waiting." Harry was yanking their suitcases, 4 large ones, far too many for a week-long trip out of the trunk, and dumping them on my walkway. This was it. I hit the call button. "They're here, they have the children, they're dumping the suitcases on the lawn." "I'm calling Ms. Evans now," Mr. Davies said. "Hold tight, Georgia, do not open that door." I heard the doorbell ring, a cheerful, chiming sound that was grotesquely out of place. "Auntie Georgia," Leo's little voice called out, "Mommy says you're sleeping, open up." My heart broke. He had no idea. He thought this was just another day of his parents dumping him on someone else. The doorbell rang again, this time longer, more insistent. Then, pounding. "Georgia, open the door," Hannah's sharp, annoyed voice. "We're going to be late. I'm not playing this game." I stayed silent, my eyes fixed on the driveway. A moment later, a dark sedan I didn't recognize pulled in right behind their SUV, blocking them in. A uniformed police officer got out of the driver's side. A woman in a professional suit, Ms. Evans, got out of the passenger side. I watched as they approached Hannah and Harry, who both froze. Hannah's head snapped toward them, her sunglasses slipping down her nose. Harry dropped his phone. "Hannah and Harry?" Ms. Evans asked, her voice calm but carrying. "Yes," Hannah said, her voice dripping with irritation. "I'm sorry, we're in a hurry. We're going to the airport." "We're with Child Protective Services," Ms. Evans said. "We've received a credible report that you are attempting to abandon your children, Leo and Sophie, with a relative who is medically incapable of caring for them." Hannah's face went white. It was a beautiful, satisfying, horrifying thing to see. All the color drained from her cheeks, leaving her spray tan looking like a muddy mask. That's ridiculous," she sputtered. "This is my sister, we're just dropping them off, it's a family arrangement." "Is it?" Ms. Evans said, glancing at my dark front door. "Because your sister, Georgia, has stated she explicitly told you no. We have copies of the text messages where you dismissed her major surgery and informed her you were leaving them anyway. We also have the transcript of a threatening call Mr. Harry made to her last night. Harry looked like he was going to be sick. I didn't, that's not." "Furthermore," Ms. Evans continued, pulling a file from her briefcase, "we have an emergency court order granting temporary custody of Leo and Sophie to the state, pending a hearing, based on evidence of parental abandonment. Officer, if you would, please secure the children. The police officer gently approached Leo and Sophie, who were watching, wide-eyed and terrified. Hey, kids, why don't you come with me? We'll sit in my car where it's warm. No, get away from my kids, Hannah shrieked, lunging forward. The officer put up a hand. Ma'am, do not interfere. This is insane. This is her fault. Hannah whirled around and started hammering on my door again. Georgia, you did this. You, jealous old witch, you did this to me. I watched unseen, my heart pounding. Ma'am, you need to calm down, Ms. Evans said. We also have a report here from the police department regarding a fraudulent mortgage application you and your husband filed against this property, which you do not own. That was the second blow. Harry actually stumbled backward. That's a lie. We have the forged documents, sir, the officer said, his voice hard, with your wife's and your signatures on them, as well as the forged signature of the trustee. And finally, Ms. Evans said, delivering the killing blow, we were made aware that you are Trav. Ling to Dubai. We took the liberty of checking with the airline. You have 2 one-way tickets. You had no intention of coming back, did you? Hannah just stared, her mouth opening and closing, no sound coming out. She looked at Harry, who was staring at the ground, defeated. She looked at the police officer, who was now walking Leo and Sophie, each child holding one of his hands to his patrol car. She had lost. In the span of 5 minutes on my front lawn, her entire fantasy life had evaporated. My bags, she whispered, looking at the suitcases on the lawn. We're going to miss our flight. Your flight is the least of your worries, ma'am, Ms. Evans said. You and your husband need to come with us. We have a few more questions for you. And for the record, she added, taping a thick packet of papers to my front door, your sister isn't the one who did this to you. You did. The police didn't arrest them on my lawn. Ms. Evans explained that the fraud case was still being built, and her priority was the children. Hannah and Harry were ordered to follow them to the CPS offices. Their passports were confiscated as a condition of their release, pending the child welfare investigation. Their Dubai trip was over. But the eviction was just beginning. I gave them a week where they were trapped, staying at some cheap motel, their $20,000 in cash likely dwindling fast. A week of frantic, furious, and finally, pleading texts and voicemails, all of which I ignored and forwarded to Mr. Davies. The homecoming was not their return from Dubai. It was their return to the house to try and reclaim what they thought was theirs. The date was set. Mr. Davies had served them with a formal, non-negotiable notice to vacate and retrieve their personal belongings on a specific day and time. The locks on the trust house had already been changed. I was to be there, as the trustee, to oversee the removal of their things. I was terrified. I was still sore, but I could walk, albeit stiffly. I drove myself to my parents' house, the house I grew up in, the house Hannah had systematically allowed to decay. Mr. Davies was already there, as was a sheriff's deputy he had arranged to keep the peace. Ms. Evans, the CPS agent, was also there. She had Leo and Sophie with her. They were in the car, and she had agreed to be present to formally serve Hannah and Harry with the papers for the emergency custody hearing. The children were not to see their parents. This was a legal proceeding, not a reunion. At 2 p.m. on the dot, a taxi pulled up. Hannah and Harry got out. They looked terrible. Hannah's hair was stringy, her face pale and puffy from crying. Harry was unshaven, his eyes darting around nervously. The designer tracksuit was gone, replaced by rumpled jeans. When Hannah saw me standing on the porch, her face, which I thought couldn't get any whiter, turned the color of chalk. Georgia, she whispered. She looked at Mr. Davies, at the deputy, and at Ms. Evans, who was now walking toward them, file in hand. What is this? Harry demanded, trying to puff himself up. What is all this? We're just here to get our stuff. You can't keep us out of our own house. That's where you're mistaken, Harry, I said. My voice was calm and clear. It didn't tremble. It has never been your house. I nodded to Mr. Davies. Mr. and Mrs., Mr. Davies said, stepping forward, you are here today, at the trustee's discretion, to remove your personal effects and only your personal effects. You are in violation of your residency agreement on multiple counts. He began to list them, his voice a dispassionate, legal monotone. 1. Failure to maintain the property. We have invoices for $18,000 in repairs and tax liens the trust has paid on your behalf. 2. Conversion of trust assets. We have receipts from pawn shops and consignment stores for furniture belonging to the estate that you sold illegally. Harry blanched, he'd been caught. 3. Mr. Davies continued. Attempted felony mortgage fraud. The district attorney's office is reviewing the file and has been in contact. And 4. Breach of the moral conduct clause, specifically, the conspiracy to abandon your minor children. We didn't abandon them, Hannah shrieked, finding her voice. We were going to come back. With one-way tickets, I asked, my voice cutting through her lie. After forging my signature to steal $200,000, after you took a title loan on your car, you weren't coming back, Hannah, you were fleeing. You. She was speechless with rage, her eyes darting around, looking for an ally. There was none. Ms. Evans stepped forward. Hannah, Harry, I am here to serve you notice of the dependency hearing. The state has filed for the removal of Leo and Sophie from your custody. Georgia has filed for emergency guardianship. The hearing is next week. This was the blow that finally broke her. The house, the money, that was one thing. But the realization that her children were legally, formally, being taken, it shattered her. No, my babies, she whimpered, her hands flying to her mouth. Georgia, you can't, they're my children, you can't take my children. I'm not taking them, Hannah, I said, and the coldness in my own voice surprised me. I'm saving them from you. You've always been jealous of me, she screamed, her face twisting. Because I'm pretty, because I have a family, you've always wanted to destroy me. Destroy you? I repeated. I paid for your certifications, I paid your debts, I co-signed your loans, I gave you a $10,000 down payment on your car, I hosted every holiday. I've spent the last decade cleaning up your messes, Hannah. I am not destroying you, I'm just done, I'm done cleaning. As of this moment, as trustee, you are formally evicted. Hannah just stared at me. Her face was white, her eyes wide with the terrifying, complete understanding of her new reality. She had no house, she had no money, she had no children, and she was likely facing criminal charges. She had bet everything against my kindness, and she had lost. You have 1 hour, the deputy said, gesturing to the door, which he unlocked. Your personal clothing and effects. Mr. Davies and I will escort you. The rest of the items in this house are assets of the trust. Hannah let out a dry, ragged sob, and for the first time in her life, she had nothing to say. Watching them was pathetic. They were like ghosts in the house, followed room by the stone-faced deputy. They tried to take the flat-screen TV. That stays, Mr. Davies said, checking his inventory list. They tried to take a painting. Trust asset. In the end, they left with 2 suitcases each, filled with clothes and personal junk. The designer bags Hannah had prized so much, I now knew, were fakes. They were piled into the back of their taxi, 2 diminished, broken people, and driven away. When the taxi was gone, a profound silence settled over the property. Well, Mr. Davies said, adjusting his tie, that's that. I looked at him, my protector, my parents' wise advocate. Thank you, Mr. Davies, for everything. You did the hard part, Georgia. You were the one who had to finally say no. Ms. Evans approached me, a soft, sad smile on her face. The children are in my car. They're asking for you. Are you ready? My heart ached, I nodded. I walked to her car. Leo and Sophie were huddled in the back seat, their faces pressed to the window. When they saw me, their expressions were a heartbreaking mix of fear and hope. I opened the door. Hi, guys. Auntie Georgia, Sophie whispered, her eyes huge. Is Mommy? Is she mad at us? I felt the tears I had been holding back for a week finally well up. I leaned in, ignoring the sharp protest from my spine, and gathered them both into my arms. No, sweetie. Oh no, Mommy and Daddy are just. They have to go away for a while. You're going to come stay with me, at my house. We're going to be okay. Leo buried his face in my shoulder. Are we in trouble? You are not in trouble, I said, my voice thick. You have never been in trouble. You are safe. The resolution was swift, and it was total. Hannah and Harry, facing a mountain of evidence, did not contest the custody hearing. They were appointed a public defender. The judge, after reading the text messages, seeing the one-way tickets, and hearing the testimony from the lender's fraud department, terminated their parental rights on the spot. He called their behavior a shocking display of greed and negligence. I was granted full, permanent guardianship of Leo and Sophie. The criminal charges for fraud are still pending, but Mr. Davies assures me, with the evidence we provided, they are both facing jail time. They are, as far as I know, living in a long-term stay motel, completely penniless. My recovery was long, but it was made easier by the sounds that now filled my quiet, sterile home. The sound of Leo practicing his reading. The sound of Sophie humming as she colored at the kitchen table. I sold the trust house. It was full of bad memories. As a trustee and a financial planner, I invested the proceeds, along with the rest of my parents' portfolio, into a new ironclad fund. Its sole purpose is to provide for Leo and Sophie, for their education, for their first cars, for their first homes. Their future, which their parents tried to steal and sell for a fantasy in Dubai, is now secure. It took me 3 months to fully recover from my surgery. The pain is gone, replaced by a strength I didn't know I had. My life is no longer just my own. It is for them. Last week, Sophie had a nightmare. I went into her room and she was crying out, "Mommy, don't go." I sat on her bed, the one that used to be my guest bed, and I stroked her hair. "SHH, sweetie, I'm right here. Auntie Georgia is here." She opened her eyes, blinking in the nightlight, and her face relaxed when she saw me. "Oh, it's you, okay." She burrowed into her pillow and was asleep again in seconds. "Okay." I sat there for a long time, just watching her breathe. My sister's betrayal was a deep, complex wound, but what she had abandoned, I had gained. I had lost a sister, but I had gained a family. And for the first time in my life, I knew I was exactly where I was supposed to be.